Welcome back to the smartest year ever, our quest to become the world's greatest conversationalist. My name is Gordy, and I decided to do a day 6 of Word Origins Week, and that is today. And today I was just wondering, what does it take to get your name turned into a global protest tactic? And is it worse to be canceled or to be boycotted so hard they named the concept after you? Like and subscribe if you haven't so you can keep up every single day. I do this every single day. Let's talk about Charles Boycott, a man whose name became the world's default word for coordinated rejection, not because he led a movement, but because he got steamrolled by one. In 1880, Ireland was deep in the throes of land conflict. Most of the farmland was owned by wealthy absentee British landlords and worked by poor Irish tenant farmers who lived at the mercy of the harvest and the rent collectors. And in the late 1870s, after 2 years of miserable weather, rotting crops, and dying livestock, farmers had no food and no cash, but the landlords still wanted rent. Farmers begged for reduced rents, and the landlords refused. And when the tenants couldn't pay, they were kicked off their land. Researching this, the whole thing was just kind of crazy to me. Like, what? These landlords are just going to find some other farmer who is magically impervious to the awful weather and agricultural disease that struck these farmers? Like, whatever. But as I read, I learned that the landlords weren't only about economic dominance, but they were also about social dominance. They were concerned about the long-term profits and maintaining control over the lower classes, sending a message, playing that long game. Anyway, so the farmers who couldn't pay their landlords were denied any goodwill by the landlords and thus kicked off the land. Enter Captain Charles Cunningham Boycott, a retired British Army officer working as the land agent for Lord Erne, an absentee British landlord who owned thousands of acres in County Mayo. He didn't actually live there, he just collected the checks. But the job of Captain Boycott was to enforce the rent, and when his tenants asked for relief, Boycott didn't just say no, he evicted them, cold and fast. But something unusual happened in response. The local community didn't fight him with violence. Instead, they stopped engaging with him at all. This new tactic was inspired by Charles Stewart Parnell, leader of the Irish Land League. In September 1880, at a Land League rally in Ennis, Charles Stewart Parnell stood before a fired-up crowd and asked them a simple question. What do you do with a tenant who bids for a farm from which his neighbor has been evicted? And people in the crowd shouted back, "You kill him! Shoot him!" But Parnell pushed back. And here's what he said in full. This is the actual speech that set the boycott in motion. "I wish to point out to you a very much better way, a more Christian and charitable way, which will give the lost man an opportunity of repenting. When a man takes a farm from which another has been evicted, you must shun him on the roadside when you meet him. You must shun him in the streets of town. You must shun him in the shop. You must shun him on the fair green and in the marketplace, and even in the place of worship, by leaving him alone, by putting him in moral coventry, by isolating him from the rest of the country as if he were a leper of old. You must show him your detestation of the crime he has committed." It's a good one. It's a good speech. So Boycott became the first test subject of this approach. His workers walked off, shops refused him service, his stables emptied, the blacksmith wouldn't fix his equipment, even the postman stopped delivering his mail. His crops sat in the field unharvested because no one would touch them. Desperate, Boycott hired 50 replacement workers from Northern Ireland, but things had escalated. Those workers had to be escorted by 1,000 armed police and soldiers, costing the British government far more than the crop was worth. And the press just went wild about this. And that's when it really started taking off. British newspapers started reporting on this strange new tactic of moral quarantine and used Boycott's name to describe it. First as a proper noun, then as a verb. Boycott is over here probably just like, hey, it's just nice to hear my name again. I do exist. But yeah, no, that's when to boycott became a verb. And by the end of that same year, members of parliament were using the word. And by 1888, it was in the Oxford English Dictionary. That is a super fast linguistic turnaround. 8 years earlier, it wasn't a word. And now it's in every language that needed the word. The concept caught on because it worked. Boycotting gave ordinary people power. They didn't need weapons. They didn't need titles and prestige and this sort of ascribed power. All they needed was to walk away altogether. And Boycott didn't take it lightly. He told the press that people were shunning him as if I had the plague. And he begged local officials for help, saying only 2 people would even speak to him. I don't even like those two people. The British government ended up spending over £10,000 to protect him and harvest his crops that were worth just £500. And he later testified before Parliament, bitterly describing the total social isolation he endured. And though the newspapers were already using his name as a verb, Boycott himself never used the word. Not once. That's not really that surprising, but I wanted to look that one up. But he definitely knew about it, and he never lived it down. He left Ireland in disgrace, eventually settling in England to live out his life in obscurity. He died in 1897. His obituary mostly dodges the word that made him infamous. And today we boycott brands, celebrities, governments, and even each other. Sometimes it's about justice, other times it's about optics, but it all comes from the same impulse that if you can't stop someone's power, you can stop participating in it. It's a soft weapon with hard consequences. So there you have it. One man's name became the blueprint for nonviolent resistance, not because he changed the world, but because he just happened to be the first guy to get iced out so thoroughly that the world needed a word for what happened to him. Thanks to all my sources, which can be found in the YouTube description. Please leave me a comment, follow, rate, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who likes this sort of thing. Share this with someone you're not boycotting. @SmartestYearEver on social media for the 1-minute version. Go check that one out after this. And in the meantime, stay curious and stay clever on our quest to become the world's greatest conversationalist. I will see you tomorrow for one more day of Word Origins Week in the smartest year ever.